In this episode, our Road to Draft Day 2024 series continues with a look at some hidden gems that I feel are sliding too low on draft day. Welcome back to the Draft FC podcast, the podcast website and YouTube channel dedicated to all things official draft FPL. My name is Mitch and I'm your host for another episode in our Road to Draft Day 2024 series. And in this one, we're going to have a look at some hidden gems. Now, if you haven't caught the previous episodes over the past couple of weeks, I have done a deep dive into each of the positions in turn, starting with the goalkeepers and moving forward to the strikers just a couple of days ago. So if you haven't checked those out yet, carry on watching this one and go and find those at the end. So I thought today I would highlight some mid to late round hidden gems. And obviously throughout the season, for those of you that are used to the Draft FC podcast already, you'll know that I highlight hidden gems every single week. So these are players that have generally less than 10% ownership in global draft leagues. Now, that's fine during the season, but for the purposes of this video, how do we determine if a player is currently being over or underrated? Well, that's easy. With the data we have available at Draft FC and the data that could be available to you if you sign up as a member, we are able to see where every single player is drafted around the world, distill that into a single table to give us their average draft day position. Not only that, we can click on each player in turn and find their individual draft day map to see every single pick, to see how frequently they're being taken at every single pick on the draft table. Now, any player going in the opening 2 or 3 rounds will be well known to you and you'll have a well-informed opinion, no doubt, already. So for this, I've pulled out 5 players who I feel have quite a discrepancy between my own rankings on the Draft FC list and the global average draft day picks. Got 2 forwards and 3 midfielders. If there are any underrated players that I haven't covered today that you feel are going under the radar, comment them below. And if I agree with you that they're underrated, I might even comment with their average draft position based on our data as well, to provide a little bit more of a freebie for those of you that aren't currently signed up on the site. Let's say if you're yet to sign up at draftfc.co.uk and your draft day's looming, you're feeling slightly behind in your preparations and want an easy head start, then head over and purchase a pre-season pack, which will give you access for a month, including access to all of our rankings and all of the global data that I'm going to be talking about in this episode, so that you can have a nice relaxing time and come away with a beautiful team on draft day. But without further ado, let's get into the meat of this episode. So quickly before we get into it, I'll just run through what the format's going to be like for this. For each player in turn, I'll discuss their current average draft position against our Draft FC ranking. So for the purposes of this video, I found a number of players in which their average draft pick is a lot higher than where I currently have them ranked, which is a sign that, in my opinion, they're being underrated. And just because you know, I like to give you as much bang for your buck as possible. I did say there were 5. There could be a freebie at the end, so stay tuned. So let's talk about the first one, Rodrigo Muniz for Fulham. Currently, he's going somewhere between 69 and 82 overall, according to our data, and that depends on the size of the draft league that we're looking at. And on our rankings, he's at the heady heights of 36. Now, currently, this is one of the largest discrepancies between my rankings and the collective wisdom of you and the rest of the draft managers out there. Now, is this because nobody else rates him? No, it's because the majority of managers have chosen to prioritise other positions rather than filling out their forward spots. Now, that's not a point I'm going to labour again on this video. For those of you that have already been up to date with the Road to Draft Day series will know exactly where my feelings are on that tactic. Now, in 10-team leagues, his average draft pick puts him as the 18th highest rated forward currently in the game, meaning he's getting picked up as a number 2 forward around the 7th round. Where are these draft leagues and how do I join them? The likes of Akanji, Shah, handful of goalkeepers even are currently averaging a higher pick than Muniz. Now, he's heading into the season as the main man, there's no doubt about that. Jimenez is very much a backup now if he were to get injured, and Fulham have decided to use some of the money they got from selling Polina to upgrade their creativity with the arrival of Emil Smith-Rowe from Arsenal, which, as the centre forward in Muniz's case, must be really pleasing to see. It's going to be really interesting how Fulham handle the loss of Polina as a team, that loss of the tackling, battling and all-round dirty work that he used to bring to their midfield. It can seem that moves like that aren't really relevant to the likes of Muniz and Iwobi and Smith-Rowe. A player like that can have so much of a bearing on the amount of possession Fulham have that if that drops significantly, if Fulham don't have the ball, their players can't score goals. So for most leagues, he will go as a forward 2. It does seem that there are a number of leagues out there where he's being thoroughly underrated. And if you were to take a couple of forwards early, you could even get him as a luxury forward 3. And what a great move that would be. If we look at his individual player draft map, and for those of you listening on the audio, I'll link it in the description below. As I said, all of this is freely available if you're a member at Draft FC. We can see there's a massive range in his picks. Most of them are clustered around the point that I said earlier. In some leagues, he's going as high as the 4th round. In many leagues, he's even going as late as the 10th and 11th round. So a huge variation there. I think as each day goes on and the data gets more and more honed towards engaged leagues, I expect to see this graph shift slightly to the left with a slightly higher average draft pick than he's currently receiving. Let's move on to the second forward in the list, which is a player I always enjoy watching, and that's Wissa for Brentford. His average draft pick at the moment is between 75 and 83, and we've got him currently at 45. So just based on the numbers, again, generally very overlooked and an extremely solid forward number 2. 0.53 non-penalty expected goal involvements per 90 last season, which is just a smidge below what Muniz was putting up. And he managed 12 goals and 4 assists in FPL for the campaign. Potentially a very exciting attacking trio Brentford could line up with this season. Obviously, new man Igor Thiago's been injured, so he's going to have to sit back for a while. I'm also assuming Tony leaves, but of course he could still be there. But even if Tony does leave, that would leave them with Wissa, Brian Mbeumo, and Kevin Schade, who's very much on my hot list this season. I think the 3 of them could pose a really frightening 3-pronged attack for many opponents in the Premier League. As I said, for 8-team leagues, based on where I've got him in the rankings lining up, he technically would become the best forward number 3, because I think he's number 17 in my overall forward ranks, which would be incredible. I think if you manage to get 2 decent forwards above him in the list and then pick Wissa up as your 3rd forward, then you're setting yourself up for success down the season. And as I said in the midfielder episode, I feel like you can't go too far wrong with the mids, but you can go very wrong with the forwards. So I said you can't go too far wrong with the mids. Let's talk about the midfielders. And the first player is a player that I did cover for quite a few episodes towards the back end of last season on the main podcast, and that's Noni Madueke for Chelsea. Now, his current average draft pick is between 94 and 96, so we're honing in on a number there around 95th, just inside the top 100, and we've currently got him ranked 77. Now, we've seen a fair bit of him in pre-season, which bodes well in what have generally been quite attacking lineups compared to some of the 11s that we saw at the back end of last season, as we're now seeing 3 attackers behind the centre forward with a double pivot behind. And so far, we've seen Madueke mainly featuring off the right-hand side. The main issue here is that Palmer will almost certainly take that spot once he's back involved. Boston and Nkunku still isn't 100% fit. Sterling, to me, I don't think has a long-term future in the Chelsea 11. So I think Madueke will see plenty enough of the pitch to be able to make an impact and stake a claim to a starting spot regularly. Of course, Palmer could move into the number 10, which would vacate that spot on the right. Non-penalty expected goal involvements per 90 last year was 0.37, which was fine, but the majority of his appearances came off the bench, which doesn't suit a lot of players. I'm expecting him to set things up this year. I have no stats to back that up. It's just a feeling I have. And given his current average draft pick, just inside the top 100, he should be someone you can leave relatively late and pick up as a midfielder number 5 around the 10th round. Next is potentially a controversial one, and I wonder if a lot of his current average draft positioning is due to some of the off-field reports that we've heard over the summer. And that's Lucas Paquetá for West Ham. His current average draft position is over the 100 mark, going between 102nd and 111th overall. And in my rankings, I've currently got him at number 69. Now, the Premier League in the last couple of days have given him the okay to resume playing, pending further disciplinary processes and investigations. If you've got no clue what I'm talking about, quick Google search will no doubt inform you. But essentially towards the back end or just after the season, there were a number of reports linking him to potential spot fixing for yellow cards, which if proven could carry some very heavy bans and very heavy penalties. But as it stands, I think just because the investigation is likely to go on a lot longer, they've said that he can carry on playing. So he's just gone and rejoined West Ham in their pre-season preparations. So we should see him in some of their pre-season games over the next week. And then there'd be no reason for him not to start the Premier League campaign for them. Now, last year, his non-penalty expected goal involvements per 90 was about 0.3, and he got 10 goal involvements last season, which is about what he's done in the 2 years since he was at West Ham. If you take Paquetá out of the team, and I believe it was about 15 games that he's not featured for West Ham in the 2 seasons that he's been there, West Ham lose 65% of the league games that he doesn't appear in. So he's really important to them. We all look at Bowen as the talisman, which he is, but we can't underestimate how important Paquetá is in their winning ways. Now, he should play as an out-and-out number 10 in the new system, and he's got a potential very good link-up partner in Füllkrug if that move goes through up front. I think the two of them could work really, really well together. Now, there have been lots of posts I've seen on social media over the last couple of days showing a proposed West Ham 11 and how good it could be on paper. And in that 11, they're always shoehorning in Somerville on the left, Kudus as a number 10, Bowen on the right, and Füllkrug up top. What that means is they're dropping Paquetá back into a double pivot with Alvarez, which I don't think would work based on the tactics Lopetegui's likely to do. I feel like they're much more likely to have Paquetá up as number 10 and have one of the other midfielders like a Ward-Prowse sitting in with Alvarez. They've also just signed a new centre mid whose name has escaped me in the last couple of days as well, so he could also fit in there. And I expect Somerville to mainly be a bench option because Cornet hasn't really shown much in a West Ham shirt. So I think Kudus will continue on the left and Somerville will come on off the bench. Now, if it does turn out that Paquetá's playing more alongside Alvarez as a number 8, which he was doing at times last year, it would definitely devalue him in my rankings, and I'll see how he lines up in some of their pre-season games. I say, because he is so overlooked, he's got the potential to be a 5th midfielder pickup for you with massive upside. They've got a couple of okay opening fixtures, so time for him to hit the ground running, and one that if he were to score or assist in the first couple of games, can very quickly leave the waiver pile. And again, just to highlight, similar to Muniz, having a look at his individual player draft map, the majority of his picks are going well after the 7th round, and some of them as far down as the 15th round, where he's being completely overlooked. And I'll tell you, there's also a number of draft leagues out there where he's not being picked up at all. There are a couple of blips on the draft map there where he's going very high up, potentially some drunk West Ham fans doing their draft day there. I say the news that he's allowed to feature and back with the West Ham squad is literally, I think, 24 to 48 hours old at the time of recording this, so a lot of people will have been drafting him with no clue if he was even able to play this season, and many might have even been drafting him having no idea that he was involved in any controversy. So on that basis, he seems the definition of a hidden gem and somebody that I've enjoyed having in my own draft teams at points over the past couple of years in the Premier League. So the final midfielder slot, and as I said at the beginning, where I give you a bonus one, for this one, I'm doing a buy one, get one free, and you'll understand why when I tell you the names. It's Hudson-Odoi and Anthony Elanga for Nottingham Forest. Now, they're both going very similarly overall in the average draft pick. So Hudson-Odoi is going around 113th and Elanga is a smidge higher at 110. In my rankings, again, they're very close, but I've got them the other way around. So I've got Hudson-Odoi at 82 and Elanga at 86. Now, I'm not happy with those numbers, and I'll tell you why in a second. Well, you'll understand why as I go on to talk about them. If we look at the numbers quickly, Hudson-Odoi last season, his non-penalty expected goal involvements per 90 was 0.3, scored 8 and assisted 2. Elanga, his non-penalty expecting goal involvements per 90 was 0.51, which puts him up in the camp with the likes of Wissa and Muniz that we spoke about a minute ago. He got 5 goals and 9 assists for that. Towards the end of last year, Hudson-Odoi became a nailed-on starter for Forest, and for some reason, Elanga was not 100% nailed. There were games he was starting from the bench, and this was all off the back of the good numbers that he posted up towards the beginning and middle of the season. Now, in this pre-season, both have been starting either side of Morgan Gibbs-White in the number 10 position behind their number 9. We've also seen them sign Jota Silva in the last few days, which slightly adds to the headache because he's another winger, can play on the left but can also play on the right. Now, obviously, unfortunately, I don't get paid millions of pounds a year to manage a Premier League football team. But everything my eyes see and everything the numbers tell me suggests that Elanga should be one of the players that is one of the first names on the team sheet and one of the players they should be building their team around. But it doesn't quite feel that that's the case. If you could tell me now that Elanga is going to play 2,500 minutes next year and he's going to start the majority of games I would have him 10 places higher, maybe even 20 places higher on the board, and I'd leave it Hudson-Odoi exactly where he is. But simply for the reason I can't guarantee he plays that much, that's why I have him just slightly below Hudson-Odoi. So really the hidden gem pick here for me is Elanga, not Hudson-Odoi, but I think Hudson-Odoi still has pretty good value up there in the draft anyway. But let's wait and see what the rest of pre-season looks like. Let's hear what the press conferences sound like, whether they sign or sell anyone else. I'd love to pick up Elanga as a mid-5. I think for people who are just simply overlooking that or aren't really aware that his spot isn't 100% nailed, could well take him higher, and I wouldn't blame them. But yeah, which one would you choose? If you had to flip a coin between the two, which one would you rather have in your draft team? So that's it for this episode, covering some hidden gem picks. Hopefully some food for thought for you there. As I said, if there are any names that you thought I should have included in this list or who you feel are underrated, do comment them below. I will reply to every single comment that you leave, so well worth doing it. And I said I might even give some freebie information out from the Draft FC dashboard if I feel that you name a particularly interesting player. For those of you that are here for the first time, I hope you enjoyed yourselves. Please do consider clicking the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes as they come. Also give us a thumbs up if you found the content useful. For those on the audio, do also give us a follow on whichever platform you're listening on. Leave us a review, and if you dare, give us a share on your social media platform. And on that note, do head over to whichever social media platform you tend to use and give us a follow. The two main ones we're on are X, and you can follow us at draft_FC. And we're also on Instagram, but we're not as active there at the moment, but we do post stuff on there during the season. If you need to reach out, say you can comment below. The best way to get a thorough and thought-out response is to DM me on X. As I said, I will respond to every single message that comes through. That could be questions about the website, questions about what I've said on here, or just general chat about your own draft teams, asking me to rate your draft days, specifics about player, football in general. Always happy to chat, and that's the best way to do it. For those that are already signed up and taking advantage of the features we have at draftfc.co.uk, make sure to check out the refer a friend feature if there are players you know likely that don't play in your own draft league, but if you know anyone that plays the game in other leagues, maybe a friend at work, maybe a family member, if they sign up using your link, you'll get £5 credited to your account to come off future fees, and they will get 50% off of whichever they sign up for. So win-win all round. So just under 2 weeks to go now before Game Week 1 kicks off, and I know lots of you try to draft as late in the summer as you can. So we're going to keep the content coming thick and fast right up to then so that we can get you as well prepared as we can for the big day. So I'll leave things there for now. Good luck with all of your preparations, and as always, stay sure.